UBC, inspiring Uganda.
A new dawn on Behind the Headlines with me, Timothy Nyangweso. Every Wednesday, live in our studios in the heart of Kampala, we have conversations that have analysis, explanation, but not every truth is fact, and not every fact is truth. Every Wednesday, 10 p.m. on your public broadcaster.
All on your public broadcaster, UBC, inspiring Uganda.
Good evening and welcome to Behind the Headlines. My name is Timothy Nyangweso. Today we look at coffee, a sector that seems to be picking up, especially in the last few years. There was a G25 coffee summit, and what were the resolutions that came out of there? 495 billion is what it looks like, the second biggest traded commodity after oil. Uganda or Africa receives 2.8 billion shillings, and when we look further on, Uganda receives 800 million. Between 5 million and 600 million bags is what we export annually, and the turnout seems like we're getting something. But when you look at a kilogram of coffee where we get $2.5, and yet a roaster of coffee gets $40, where's the difference? Why are we not adding value? The biggest thing of this summit came to a declaration by Kampala, and 4 things were mentioned there. 1, value addition. 2, technology, vocational training, and they said these things need to go to the AU. What does that mean for Uganda? Can we make coffee a cash cow of this country? Can we add value to it? Can we include women and children in this value chain? The biggest question is, can it stop unemployment in this country? That's the discussion tonight, and you can be part of it as even we dig deeper into it. Let me get to our panel so that you can be able to meet them. On the extreme end, he's no stranger, especially in things that are called social development in this country. Mr. Mugenyi Robert, who is the Managing Director of Buganda Cultural and Development Foundation. He's an economist. He's one that is an enthusiast of development in this country. Next to him is no stranger in the studio, one that is a seasoned banker, an economist. When it comes to things that matter like budgets, he is one we consult when we bring him here. Honorable Omara, Member of Parliament for Otuke District, Otuke County, and is here to digest these issues. Finally, but not least, a lady that is no stranger in areas of development and making sure women are empowered. If you have heard of the Hope Foundation, an initiative which has helped 11,000 women. In 2017, she was named among the 100 top women by BBC. She is a philosopher, and she is Honorable Dr. Atim Agnes, Member of Parliament for Amolata District, the woman Member of Parliament there. Finally, he is no stranger to things like logistics, exporting things out of this country. He's a logistics man, and he's the Secretary General of the Uganda Shipping Council. He's a Member of Parliament for Rampara. He is Amos Kankunda. That is our panel. But finally, we'll also have a doctor who is Emmanuel Yamreme, the Chief Executive Officer of Uganda Coffee Development Authority. That's our panel tonight, and they will be telling us deeper into the conversation of coffee and more. Let's get a video from the Senior Presidential Advisor, Mr. Odrick Rwabogo, to see what he's saying about coffee in this country.
My name is Odrick Rwabogo, and I chair a committee called the Presidential Advisory Committee on Exports and Industrial Development. And that's what I do. So let me just tell you, I don't like the word potential. It has been used about Africa, Africans, African institutions, African economy. We always have potential. But a man or woman should arrive in the room and they say, I'm here. Potential not actualized is wasted opportunity, because the cost of money is counted in what value it gives you today, times if you saved it, what it will generate as investment capital tomorrow. So for me, I know that there are some actions that have taken place in the last couple of years. So take the year 1962, forget 1945, I was saying from 43 to 49, this product was a highly political crop because you needed to set up cooperatives, and those cooperatives of farmers demanded processing. The same argument we have today, the late Ignatius Musazi and others, this is what started the move to independence. They were saying, why is the roasting, the hulling, the management of this strategic crop only left to Asians and not us? And they said the same of cotton. So that's what began the Kapir riots of 1949. And coffee has not stopped being political ever since. But here's the point I wanted to make. Some changes have happened and you need to recognize them. From 1962, when we became independent, to around 2014, we stagnated around 3 million 60-kilogram bags. That's a lot of time, but very little change. But from 2017 to date, we are now at around 8 million 60 kg bags. What has happened? Some interventions in the sector has pushed production. So the next set is not to reduce production. We need to harvest more kilos per tree. From the tree you have, you can augment production. But on top of increasing 60-kilogram gunny bags to 12 to 20, what we want, we should now add value. And this word value addition is pretty much confused because you can add value at all levels. There are various segments where value is created, from the farm to the cup. So those value creation channels and steps, some of them is what Perseid is trying to disrupt, to do things differently. So last year, you as a country produced, I think, around 350,000 metric tons total, Robusta and Arabica. That's your 8.5 million 60 kilogram bags. Of that 350 something, 290,000 is Robusta. That's 83% of our total production. Robusta comes from everywhere, Masaka, Luwero, Ankole. The balance of 17% comes from Arabica, which should be premium coffee on high altitudes, Kasese and Elgon, Kasese, Rwenzori and Elgon, and a few other places. That's your total production. But of all that 351,000 metric tons, you exported 99% green beans. You really...
So that's the senior presidential advisor putting context to our conversation here. You can be part of the conversation. Go to our Twitter handle, #UBC Behind the Headlines. Let us know what you think. But also, you can text us or WhatsApp us on 0709 60 25 92, and we'll be getting to some of those there. We're also on YouTube. Let's delve into this conversation. But giving you a bit of perspective, this is the second coffee summit. The last one was in Nairobi. Resolutions were made. This was called the Kampala Declaration. There's a third one happening in 2024 in Tanzania. Have they made any difference? Are we making headway in what is coffee? Let's start with Dr. Emmanuel to be able to give us perspective, especially him being at the forefront of the body that regulates, promotes, and ensures that our coffee gives value for money. Doctor, good evening, and it's good to have you.
Good evening. Good evening, moderator, and good evening, viewers.
So, Doctor, let me start with you. What's the state of our coffee in this country, even as we project to getting to 20 million bags of 60 kilograms?
Well, just to give you a perspective at continental level and at global level, Uganda is one of the fastest growing producers of coffee. We now have moved from 8th position to 7th position within about 5 years. But also in Africa, we have moved to #1 position in terms of exports. But in terms of numbers, we have moved from 3.5 million bags to now 8.5 million bags, with value, of course, moving from around 350 million US dollars to 846. That's no mean feat, and that's why we are proud to be leading also in terms of the movement towards value addition.
Doctor, how much of that is raw material and how much of it is value added?
Just to give you perspective, that value addition is from seed up to the cup. So at farm level, we have seen, for example, the growth of screen 18, those are the big beans moving from around 12% to around 23%. And we also see more productivity increasing per tree, the number of berries coming from a tree. But we have also seen in that regard increase in the number of machines which are used for harvest, for secondary processing, both as Robusta coffee, also as Arabica coffee. UCDA has been giving out wet mills to farmers and cooperatives, but also individual farmers, individual traders have also increased the number of machines to do secondary processing. Now, when we look at the tertiary processing, which largely most of the people are talking about as value addition, we have also seen the number of roasters, the number of cafes increasing across the country, and therefore we are seeing more value addition taking place. Overall, the exports of coffee are dominated by green beans. Almost 99% is still green beans, but that's already a transition from almost zero cafes in around 2000. I recall around 1998 we had only one cafe, Bani Cafe, but the numbers have increased, even in rural areas. So I think we have to, before we start running, we have to start walking.
Okay.
And I think there is when we look at the domestic coffee consumption, the number of youth we have trained as baristas. Now we are working with the 19 universities where we have given espresso machines. We believe we are in the right direction.
Thank you very much, Doctor, and for that preamble. Let me come to you, Mr. Mugenyi. Doctor gives us very good numbers, very rosy picture. Is that what is happening on the ground? Because I know as the Uganda Culture and Development Foundation, you are on the ground seeing exactly what's happening. Does that translate to an ordinary Ugandan?
Thank you, Timothy. It's very interesting. The numbers that Dr. Yamlemi is mentioning are as a result of the farmers' initiative and effort. But when you look at what happens, when you look at the statistics, the breakdown of how this comes to be, our president keeps saying that we need to get to middle income status at one point, and as an agroeconomy we need to look at where we are going to start to move forward. We look at the coffee farmers out there. Right now we are talking about 1.8 million coffee farmers producing coffee and supporting about over 5 million beneficiaries from the value chain, from the traders, the processors, the roasters, the baristas. When you do an analysis of how the coffee is going to move from the farmer to where it's ending up in this beautiful cup for somebody to enjoy a good cup of coffee, we did a study and looked at the profitability of the business. We need to take extra effort. We need to take strategic direction to ensure that for us to get to the 20 million bags that we are targeting, the one who is producing coffee is producing profitably. Right now, we'll say Uganda is gifted by nature. That's known as a true fact. We are gifted by nature. We have We have looked at use of fertilizers, and we are saying yes, we use the least number of fertilizers, 500 grams per hectare per year, very small numbers. And when you look at in terms of production and costs of production, we are saying the cost of production of coffee in Uganda is the least compared to other countries. Let us take a picture of East Africa. But then, if you look at how the coffee is going to come out to be, you'll see that the efforts the women are putting in have not yet taken that extra recognition. The youth that we have seen moving out because they have not realized that extra unique area of engagement in the coffee value chain has not been realized by them. And we have a dream that we are going to move from just producing the raw product, the green bean that we're exporting, to drinking our coffee as our neighbors in Ethiopia, up to 50% if we can get there. Right now the numbers are good. We have moved up to 7% consumption. We are moving, but there's still that extra effort that is needed. We need to review, I would say, our strategies that we are using to implement to ensure that the country gets to that level of a middle income status, support the farmers actively, and move forward.
You have mentioned farmers, you've mentioned value addition, you've also mentioned the number of people, 1.5 farmers, 1.5 million farmers, 5 million in the value chain there.
Yes.
Is this money of $800 million translating to these people?
The farmer at the end of the value chain, if we compare with our neighbors, the farmer in Uganda is estimated to be earning about 70% of export value. But when you look at the farmer out there in terms of production vis-a-vis input, they're not earning that much. We want to move forward as a country. We want to move forward as a country to ensure that whoever is producing is able to earn what they are putting in and then also make a profit. We have taken advantage as value chain actors of our farmers because they don't keep extra records to analyze their business input versus what they are selling out. But interestingly, we did a review with Dr. Musenero of ICS, and we were all surprised. Farmers are producing at a loss. So we need to find how to make sure that this farmer is producing profitably. We have looked at how much a farmer is earning and vis-a-vis the production. The farmer who is doing an average production, on average in Uganda, is producing about 600 grams of FAQ of coffee. Very low. Even our research in Nakori, they are showing us that at least a farmer can be able to produce up to 2 kilograms of FAQ to up to 3 kilograms. And we can also reach up to the Brazilian levels of 3.5 kilograms per tree. But we are doing 600 grams. We still need to make more effort for us to get there.
Thank you very much.
Yes, please.
Honorable Mara, you are a man of numbers, and let's get to the numbers. 1.5 million farmers, 5 million in the value chain, a farmer getting $2.5 per kilogram, $40 for anyone that is roasting. Government is giving us good numbers, big numbers of bags being exported. What is the missing link? Mr. Mjenya has spoken about a farmer really working at a loss. What are we missing?
I think the missing link was part of the resolution of the conference, which is the value addition. If you look at the numbers, the global coffee trade is $495.5 billion. And out of that, Africa only gets $2.8 billion. And in terms of the global production, Africa only contributes to 12%. So what that means is that regardless of our efforts as a continent and as a country, because we are predominantly selling these coffee beans, I hear what the experts have talked about in terms of innovation. There is actually very little innovation, and even the conference recognized that 99% of what we are producing here are being sold as raw materials. There is basically very little value addition. So if you sell coffee as beans in the main, you're just going to get very little money from the international market. And that little money spreads through to the final producer, the coffee farmers that we are talking about. Actually, the 1.8 million is actually households. 1.8 million households, that's the estimate for the households in Uganda that are producing coffee. But if, for example, you multiply that by a factor of 4, you might actually find over 5 million Ugandans are basically involved in the coffee production, from the field maybe to the exports. So I think what Uganda and Africa need to correct is, if we don't engage ourselves in value addition, we will continue to produce coffee, we will continue to sell, and the farmer on the ground will continue to be cheated on the account that the ones who are exporting are actually middlemen. They are basically brokers, in effect. So if brokers sell the coffee, they export the coffee beans, also the international market, they're not going to be given a premium price. So whatever they get, that is what they will actually give the spread to the farmer. So I think value addition, and I like the resolution of the conference, that coffee will now be Africa's strategic agricultural commodity, which Africa will say this is also, because look at the market value, $495.5 billion is quite substantial, and we only get 2.8. So if we can add value, because now currently we are contributing to 12% of the global supply. And what they are saying is that we must engage to increase our production. For Doctor has given us the number that we are producing 8.5 million kilos or tons, million kilograms. Kilograms. Now we are targeting 20 million kilograms. So if our number, Uganda is thinking of increasing its numbers, other African states, the G25, also want to push our contribution to the coffee world beyond the 12%, maybe 40%. But even as we do the numbers, we want to increase the production. We must now look back and say, there should be, within a certain period of time, Africa should now engage in value addition, which in this particular case are coffee on the cup. Not this one of beans, a coffee on the cup. And if you look around us, there are about 20 companies that are seriously involved in coffee processing and exports. If we can put them into a conglomerate of really starting a coffee factory, processing, value addition that the president has been talking about, and there can be a government support, a strategic investment in coffee, so that we don't export beans. Our target should not be how many kilograms. Now you see how we are thinking. We want to export 20 million kilograms. Grain, beans, not processing final product coffee, which should now go into the cup. So I think that is what we should be looking at in terms of value addition as a focus. And if it is a strategic crop now, and the three of us, we sit on a budget committee, and we have been struggling to make sure as government puts sufficient money in UCDA, and the doctor is here, so that we can increase coffee production at the farmers level. For example, in northern Uganda, you know, the British told us, you guys grow cotton. But we have actually realized coffee would do very well in northern Uganda. So if we invest in coffee, because currently northern Uganda is not a coffee growing area. Traditionally it's been in Buganda. Now the West is now very prominent in growing coffee. So if we want to touch the 20 million kilograms as a country, then we need to extend production in other areas. We have a lot of land, Doctor, in northern Uganda. So we from an investment perspective, government should invest deeply in coffee. We should not remove the brakes, because now coffee, over $800 million, is our #1 revenue earner. So you cannot disinvest from where you are actually making money. And then secondly, we should support the private sector that are currently involved in trying to create exports and also value addition, so that meaningfully we can extract value from coffee.
And we're going to come to value addition later on. Let's first build this preamble. Dr. Honorable Atim, you have done great initiatives, especially with rice in Amolata, and a lot of women have been involved in this. When you look at this coffee, when you look at how numbers sound very good, 8.5 million bags, 800 million, 2.8 billion, how do we tap into that? Let's get to the ground. What are the challenges, especially farmers are facing when we get to this coffee?
Thank you very much, Timothy. Good evening, viewers. I would like once again to thank UCDA for lobbying, first of all, to bring the G25 summit to Uganda. And also I think the president did make a very good pronouncement, which I think influenced the overall Kampala declaration, focusing mainly on value addition. But as a practitioner on ground, for me there are about 2-3 things. One is the issue of decision making, on who makes the decision on the pricing. My colleague in Uganda has just said that you hear of the billions, but very little is reaching the farmer. And I think the president of, I wasn't around, but read through the pronouncements that were made. And the president of Ethiopia made very good statements that the farmers produce very good quality coffee, but the middlemen are the ones who decide on the price. So the issue on who decides on the price, who is involved along the value chain, I think for me that is the first issue that we need to do to make sure that our farmers actually benefit from whatever engagement they have in coffee. Two, the other issue is that is a known fact that women contribute about 80% of the workers in the agriculture sector are women. And remember, coffee is a cash crop. So until we also understand who is involved in this production and who is really at the market, and we will also be able to identify the real impact that you are talking about on the income or revenue that we get from coffee. I think one of the other issues that I also noted from the declaration was the element of research and market. I think we've been counting bags, and we know the markets are in Europe, and that's why we pack our bags and take it there. But I think they were cognizant, and I think doctors brought it out, that it's a high time as Africans. We also learn how to drink our own coffee. I think Ethiopia now drinks 50% of their coffee. That is already a market. So if as Africans, and I like our president so much, he's a Pan-Africanist, and he really pushes that idea of being a Pan-Africanist, and we start looking inside. And I think the African Free Trade Area market, and that was one of the declarations, actually, the Kampala Declaration, that we've got to first understand that 25 of the countries in Africa are producing coffee. Can we start trading fast within the African countries? Maybe our bags will make some bit of meaning than giving somebody your coffee at, did you say 12%? $12?
$2.5.
$2.5, and somebody sells it at $40.
$40
because he's roasting it somewhere in America or in Europe. Can we develop that market? within, and we do the intra-trade within the African communities. Now, the other aspect, that the challenge that you are talking about, that do we see it? As my colleague said, if 5 million people are directly engaged in this coffee, as a country and as a continent, what investment are we making there? It is very unfortunate that as a continent and as Africa, and in that declaration, I did not see the presidents or the countries putting in money. When we travel abroad for this climate change, you hear European countries, people are putting billions of dollars into climate change. I expected that the 25 countries were going to put their foot down and say every country is going to invest this much money in coffee. But they were also now making declarations that, oh, investment in coffee, oh, we shall link up with African Development Bank, exim something.
A free exim.
And coffee is our competitive advantage, both as a country, and you know, I think my colleague has just said, and is a known fact, that coffee is our highest revenue generator. Why would we come out and say, this is the much we are going to invest? So one of the issues I realized in that G25, I think Doctor will help us. I looked for the data, the resolution for Kenya last year. I didn't find it. I want to see after 1 year. I think you have asked that question. How much have we achieved? So that if it is a summit of just declarations, we leave it.
Doctor, let me read for you some of the resolutions, especially from Nairobi and the ones from the Kampala. Resolutions from Nairobi, that is 2022, include coffee as a strategic commodity.
The same.
Thank you very much. Support research and development.
The same.
Inclusive of women and youth. Enhance financing from ADB and Afro-Exim. Address value addition.
Same.
And this one said R&D, which is research and development, improve technology. I think the only difference was vocational training.
Yeah, maybe.
And also the hope
so
that
now,
we get to the AU.
That is a challenge that as Africans and as a country we need to address. We've got to move out from being rhetoric to being practical. For heaven's sake, this is a crop that is employing 5 million people. This is a crop that brings $800 million. More, I think, is the highest revenue generation.
Is the highest
in the country.
There was one time gold, but gold is not.
So difficult? What is so difficult? Like the way our president took a stand and said, all the money is going to be invested in roads. All the money is going to be invested in electricity. What is it that we cannot do to make sure in Uganda, we start with Uganda, we put money there and we say, we want to address quality, we want to address the productivity challenge, that the reason why farmers are not, coffee is not profitable and farmers is not getting money because there's very little subsidy. There's very little that we are investing. If we put in fertilizers, doctor will tell you that if we invested, we put more fertilizers, I think we cut the tree. Unfortunately, I don't even know how the coffee is done. I don't grow it. Maybe it would be more productive and farmers would be more profitable. So the element of financing, the element of decision making, the pricing, cutting the middlemen and making sure we address coffee from the garden to the cup with limited. And who are these exporters, by the way? Doctor, would you mind addressing the country? Who are these exporters? Are they Ugandans? Are they foreigners? And why do we allow our coffee to go? So I think it's really a matter of decision making. What is it that we want to achieve? And I think one of the minister of Ethiopia said that actually coffee for them in Ethiopia is an hospitality crop.
Okay.
It's about parties, it's about food security, it's about income, it's about jobs. So this is not just coffee in the cup, but it touches different areas of livelihoods of our people.
Mr. Genyi, let me come to you. Let me first finish with Honorable Kankunda here. The president spoke during this summit and said iron ore, he refused it being exported because they were going to give us $46 per kilogram. He said the uranium should stay in the ground until we get people who are bringing their companies here. What is failing with coffee? Because hearing all the submissions here, $800 million seemingly trickling just peanuts to a farmer, where is our challenge and how can we elevate it?
Thank you so much, Timothy and the listeners and my colleagues in the panel. First of all, we need to understand that to achieve anything, we must be intentional. We must be intentional as a country. We must deliberately make decisions that will start from the grassroots. In this instance, when you hear these declarations, that is good. But what deliberate effort are we making as a country to start with that person on ground? And some of the issues we need to address, one is you cannot continue doing things the same way and expect different results. It's not possible. So UCDA, and that's why we supported UCDA because one, they went to the ground and made sure our farmers get the right seedlings. And therefore, when we're talking about parish development model to support productivity in other products like coffee, in this instance, we must address ourselves to the issue of the quality of the seedling. That's one. Two, we must make sure that our farmers are trained. Because you see, Timothy and colleagues, if you want to get a good product, it depends on how you get that seedling of quality, how you plant, the spacing. So there are those small things that make value and eventually come out to the quality product we want in order to go to the market and be competitive. Now, all that process also comes with us organizing our people. Organizing our people, training them, informing them about the quality of the soil. You know, they call them extension workers at the district. They must be able to test the soils and know this is the right soil for this kind of coffee, be it Robusta or Arabica. So that we intentionally develop that, and at the end of the day, I can assure you, when we organize our people in two groups, I am doing it, for example, in my constituents and colleagues that we work together, to make sure that we form coffee associations or circles at parish levels so that they know themselves, they learn from each other. Because the other problem we've had is financing, which Honorable Tim was alluding to. If we just say we want to produce this, the governments must put aside that amount of money that will address the problem. Because when the farmer doesn't have enough support, at the end of the day, the quality of the coffee that we'll get will not be good. Why? Because he's in a challenge, he does not associate with others, and therefore when he wants some little money, he will even sell the flowering before the actual quality, the actual bean comes out. So what we are trying to say is that as we do that and finally come to that quality product and look at the harvest and post-harvest handling, and therefore we, at the end of the day, start the issues of value addition and branding. Branding is a must. People buy brands. So as Africa, therefore, how are we branding our coffee? How do we position ourselves? And positioning in marketing is in the mind. So that everyone in the market out there, when he thinks of coffee, he thinks of the African coffee, the Ugandan coffee. That branding is what I'm talking about. And getting to your point that you're saying, what can we do that rather we do not just sell coffee? It is about intentionally going back and developing that chain, and our people mindset changes. And we've seen that once that is done, with the declaration that we've seen that was made with the G25, once that is done and our people are trained, the youth should be the target, so that when they are trained, and youth and women, you know, they realize that instead of running to look for jobs, there is an opportunity here. And that money at the end of the day is what will improve our household incomes that we are talking about, is eventually, you know, I also sit on the same committee like Honorable Mara has said with these colleagues, the finance committee. And as a country, when we are talking about issues of revenue mobilization to support our budgets, when we have these economies now that are performing better, and therefore you're able to tax, you can sustain your national budget. This should be the target that as a country we should look at, and at the end of the day, as a region and as Africa, promoting regional and intra-regional trade. It's good my colleagues have talked about improving or increasing our consumption levels. Consumption levels, we must become the first market. We must become the first. That alone will help us improve even before we export. You know, Timothy and colleagues, we've always had a problem. I've been, like you introduced me, I've been in logistics. And when these development partners are coming in, they want to set, for example, a mindset of a seamless flow of imports. And therefore, as Africans, as Ugandans, we seem to think about more of imports. This paradigm shift is necessary to start thinking about intra-regional trade and export. And that's what we increase ourselves into getting this.
And let me give you a follow-up question before I get to the Mr. Mjenyi there.
Yes.
Interestingly, in East Africa, Uganda, 54% of the arable land in East Africa is here in Uganda.
Yes.
$800 million is money without really so much effort in there. And when you talk about intentionality, we look at Kenya, especially after the first summit, 33 of the 47 counties are growing coffee. We see that they have committed 11 million seedlings. We see that 109,000 acres is there. We also look at Tanzania, which has 1.4 million people. They have a Tanzanian agriculture bank. What backward forward linkages are we missing? Because these people seem to be intentional after the first summit. We seem to be re-echoing the same words we said in the first summit. Where the backward and forward linkages were missing here?
Now, one is you realize that the backward linkages are understanding how to do what I've just told you about, you know, building up a good quality coffee bean and all that, and even the byproducts of that will come to remain with the people on the ground and all that, and the money and jobs and all that. And of course, going forward is how are we able to export that and trade within the region? That is missing. And for purposes, for all purpose and intent, this is what we should address. And you know, we have failed, and I want to tell you, you talked about the arable land. The arable land that we have, when it rains, we've seen in Uganda, it floods, water is everywhere, and we are planting. In 1 or 2 months, it is very dry, and we cannot do anything. There are things that we must address. I had an opportunity to move with Honorable Atima Pair to Thailand. They used to have such a challenge. How can we do that? I've seen our government now, we are trying to think about irrigation. And this irrigation is what should help us, be it at a small scale or at a bigger scale. Looking at northern Uganda, for God's sake, the land you see there, you know, it should be one of the biggest productive areas with large-scale irrigation, people organized in such a way that they can come in 2 groups, and that is not being done. And before we know, the water that we've had has run through our land and has gone to Egypt, and Egypt is producing better than us, and we are watching.
Yes, then I'll have Mr. Mjeni.
The missing lane from Kenya and Tanzania you are talking about is that as Uganda, I've been privileged for the last 2 years. I was in Agriculture Committee. We have actually seen a downward trend of our funding to UCD as a lead agency from, I think, almost to 20% budget cut.
Almost
so ours, when others are investing from 60-something billion, 60, Doctor, what is that for the last 2 years?
From 105.
105 billion. This financial year is?
To 40.
40 billion. So that is the trend. That's what we are doing.
Link, yeah.
So that is why I'm telling you, instead of having summits and making declaration, let us come with the money and put on the table and say for Uganda, this is what we are going to invest in coffee for the so many years. But this talking,
Mr. Mjeni, before I come back to
it
Dr.
may
Emmanuel.
not help much.
It's very interesting, and the summit, I think it was good that happened in Uganda.
Yeah.
We have had really, I think, Uganda has very great brains, I would say. We develop very good concepts, we develop very good papers, we develop very good theories. The implementation becomes a bit hazy, I would say. Honorable has mentioned that he wants Dr. Yamlemi to take coffee to the north. I smiled a bit because I thought, okay, I wonder where UCD is going to get the coffee seedlings. How is UCD going to pay for the seedlings?
Yes.
You know, it's really interesting. We are moving forward, we have a target, but then the facilitation is limited.
Yes.
It becomes a bit
The
interesting.
investment.
But you know, some of the economists will tell you differently. They'll tell you if there is demand, they'll tell you if there is demand, if there is a pull, there will be a push. We have seen it in Buganda. The Katikira has made tremendous efforts to encourage people, and we did really very good work with UCDA to encourage people to plant coffee. Somewhere, somehow, the funding to UCDA, because UCDA was supporting Buganda Kingdom with the coffee seedlings, got a bit reduced. But the people still had that bit of interest, and they are going to buy their own coffee seedlings. But going back to the summit, for us as the producers who are there, we're really happy by the outcome of the summit. And one of the things that you mentioned about the summit, what came out, we believe the president was able to hear what the people are putting forward. If somebody out there, an economist or a financier, said, let us reduce the fund to UCDF for this and let us put it to this alternative option. Honorable mentioned we have put funds in parish development model, very good initiative for those who are doing seasonal crops. For coffee, where you need results to start happening after 2 years, 3 years, you might not be able to participate effectively.
Exactly.
Maybe if you're going into up the value chain, where you're going to say, I'm going to trade coffee, I'm going to buy and hawk coffee, become a middleman, and yet Honorable is saying, let us reduce the middleman, you know. There was one of the things that came out of the summit, a concerted effort to ensure that all the countries put coffee forward, and also to ensure that we have a uniform kind of standard to market our produce. Those are things that really touched us as producers, because if you say we are going to market our coffee, a farmer will produce and go up to a stage of graded coffee, but they don't know what will happen afterwards. What standards are they going to use?
Yes.
Things like domestic consumption, very interesting. UCDA has done really great effort to promote domestic coffee consumption. There are other partners, the cafes that have come out promote domestic coffee consumption. When you look at, I think it was one of the studies that were made, that Uganda's business, 80% of them don't survive the first birthday. Then you go to those that have survived the 20%, 50% don't survive the second birthday. It's only 5% that get to the third birthday. I met a young lady, very interesting. She studied coffee. She did some work with UCD at their laboratory. She packs very good small coffees, 500 shillings a pack. When you ask her, why aren't you producing really this for the bigger market? She says, well, I've tried, but there are other hindrances. There's a very interesting analogy with the country called Israel. Their Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, looked at how they are going to move forward and said, well, we need to, by then he was the finance minister, he said we need to cut in some areas so that our people are able to spend. And when they spend, we shall collect more. You find that for us as a country to say we are going to add value or we are going to go for value addition, no matter where they use the words, there is a cost. And that cost comes with a tax. And our people get out of business because they are not able to come forward after that tax. Our neighbor here, President Nyerere, said, if you have the weak, support them until they're strong enough. You know? We have about, I think, and Doctor will clarify on this, we have about 70 plus exporters, local plus international. Of those 70 plus, you'll find the biggest percentage, about 90%, are Ugandan local coffee exporters. But the margin they are struggling with is very small. Some of them will tell you, well, we can't be able to manage because we are not able to survive. Some of them will tell you we need access to finance. You know? But how are we going to move forward if you're not supporting the weak? I think about 5-10 years ago, we launched Bubu, Buy Uganda, Build Uganda. But then when you get to the product that comes out, you find that the local investor, the Ugandan who is putting in, the micro, the small enterprises, they are struggling with that bit of taxes that they are facing. Sorry. For us as producers, when they said domestic coffee consumption, we said yes.
Honorable Mujini,
Yes.
Mr. Mujini, let me
Yes.
come back to you.
Yes.
Let me come to Dr. Emmanuel. Numerous challenges given here. Numerous challenges also we know with the UCDA, especially with budget cuts there. But let's turn this coin and see where it looks. What is our value proposition with our coffee? What makes us unique?
Leaders, I'm privileged to be having 2 members of parliament and
Three.
three members of parliament and Mr. Musenze, who is also leading Bukadef. I think we need to have some positives with the gains we have had. We know where we have been. In the 70s, we were booming with President Amin had to fly the coffee to London. But we also know what happened in the 80s and with the coffee wilt disease coming, cutting down the production to nearly half. So when we look at the steps we have taken, we need to also be very positive and say, okay, we can do more, but are we doing badly? And I want to bring 3 perspectives. During the summit, I was humbled to see that most of the countries were actually, apart from attending the 8th of the 8th as a summit day, there were so many bilaterals. Each of them, including our neighbors, wanted to benchmark on what Uganda is doing. Just 2 weeks ago, Uganda UCDA supported over 16 companies who are adding value to their coffee to participate in the competition of value-added coffee in Paris. And Uganda's coffee was 3rd among all the countries which participated. 2 of the coffees earned gold, 3 silver, 3 bronze. And none of our neighbors' coffee actually went to that level. So there are some positives.
The quality and the...
No, actually we are talking of the coffee in our cup.
In the cup.
Oh, the coffee in the cup.
Yes, the coffee in the cup. We had 2 golds, we had 3 3 silver, 3 bronze. I think we have to look at where we have come from. Yes, Ethiopia is way ahead of us because coffee was always the part of their culture. Ours was using kiboko. So when we look at the transformation, and again, this is where we have started with the youth. We have the International Women in Coffee Alliance, housed through UCDA, supported through UCDA and other development partners. It is the most vibrant in East Africa. If we look at now we have revamped the Uganda Coffee Roasters Association. Again, it's a baby trying to walk. And when we look at the number of the youth involved in coffee, like I said, yes, we can do much more, but we have to look at our history and where we have come from. Now, in terms of production, the government made a decision to go to the parish model, where the beneficiaries are mainly those in 39%. As Mr. Musenze mentioned, we have been working very closely with Uganda Kingdom. We have gone beyond the cultural leaders. We are working with all religious institutions because we know they are the largest landlord after Uganda. And I want to invite you all, next Tuesday on the 22nd of this month, we'll be launching the guidelines for matching grants, where farmers can access. We are looking at commercial farmers, where with UCDA, supported from European Union and government of Uganda, we are going to be promoting commercial coffee production. We want to move from half acre of coffee to 5 acres of coffee as the minimum for commercial farmers. For Brazil, for example, a smallholder farmer, the lowest is 6 hectares. 6 hectares is already over 15 acres. But that is Brazil, with a big land, with a lot of mechanization. And when we look at where we have been, I think we are making some steps. Every season, every beginning of the season, UCDA will receive more than 500 applications. These are not from smallholder farmers. These are now more from people in offices, businessmen downtown who have seen there is profitability of coffee. So yes, farmers can earn more, but let's remember, farmers are actually not operating at loss. Farmers are not adding fertilizers. They are planting the seed, doing the minimum of the mulching and good agricultural practices. So they can as Mr. Musenze has mentioned, they are getting over 70 to 75% of the export price. Of course, that's export price of the green beans. People of my generation and above went to school because of coffee. If coffee was making a loss, farmers wouldn't be making that money. The issue of the G25 Coffee Summit, again, as our President always mentions, we are trying to kuzukusa Ugandans, to kuzukusa the leaders that coffee is the second most traded commodity in the tropics and it originates from Africa. Why is Africa not having this? Why are we not having a fair share of the final product? So if the African heads of states in the next General Assembly prioritizes coffee as a strategic commodity, then we believe more resources will be coming through investments. Africa can also go to negotiate with other countries. Even if we produce this coffee, as my reader has mentioned, coffee is a brand. There might be, Europe has opened for us everything but arms, zero tariff, America through AGOA, you can export, but you can get your coffee and it stay on the shelf. So there are also other non-tariff barriers out there. So we have to look at the strategy on how we can increase domestic coffee consumption. If we add value to this coffee, how do we, for example, export our coffee to North Africa? Algeria, Morocco, Egypt. They all big consumers of the coffee, but they import the coffee from
Europe. The one we have exported.
So that's where the issue of African Continental Free Trade Area comes in. We have to look at the logistics also around it. The good news is that we had also, during the participation, we have the special guests, including Algeria, which actually spends over $300 million US on coffee alone. And therefore, we are looking at how within the African Continental Free Trade Area, we tap into those markets. We are also looking at roasting at the origin, but also partnership with other consumers. For example, we have seen examples in Ndiro Coffee, where they have partnership. They do roasting here, they have cafes here, but also they export the green beans to America, do the roasting there and distribute there. This money still comes back to the economy because the coffee, the directors are both one American, another one Ugandan. We can look at different models, but we make sure that we increase production, we increase domestic coffee consumption, but also we do the branding. We embed these markets. When we are looking at $40 per kilo, I think we need to also look at what are the costs involved. The rent in London, the labor, they have a minimum labor law in London. The cost of the coffee has so many parameters there. But so if we want to invade that market, we have to partner with the partners in London so that we can, in terms of branding, in terms of visibility, we can penetrate these markets easily, but also attract those investments, because here we have cheap labor, the materials are cheaper here, and therefore we can also bring back some of these investments and provide some of the financing to. Talking of financing has been
Doctor, let's pick it up after the break. Let's take a very quick coffee break here. Coffee provided to us by Uganda Coffee Development Authority here. We're taking the coffee on set so that we can be able to discuss it better.
Yes.
So let's take a break, and when we come back, we'll be digging into these stories more.
It's a good one.
Honorable Omar and the Honorable Perry, I'm happy to meet you here. And of course, my
It's super fast internet. Oh, it's a super camera. It's a super battery.
Phone battery full.
Yeah, it's a super deal. Get the Capote Super from MTN now at a reduced initial deposit of only 49,000 shillings and pay the balance in Pola for as low as 833 shillings per day. Grab this Super Capote deal this Christmas and get 2 GB of free MTN data every month for 8 months. Get the Capote Super now from any MTN shop countrywide. Everywhere you go, MTN. Regulated by UCC.
Juko.
Yo.
Check the shopping, man. What's your secret?
Haven't you heard of the parish development model PDM?
Yes, I did, but I thought it was just a talk.
No, it is real. I and a few friends together formed a circle, accessed money from the PDM, invested in a portrait project, and now things are moving.
Juko. I thought I was one of your friends.
You are.
But you left me behind.
I didn't leave you in poverty. But what you do, just visit your LC2 chairperson and your parish chief and start the process of economic transformation. Just like that. The parish development model is an initiative from the government of Uganda through the Ministry of Local Government designed to transform all lives of Ugandans for the better. PDM, my parish, my development, my life.
Are
Are you tired of high fees and slow transfer time when sending money? Airtel Money is here to revolutionize the way you move your money. We have revised our rates back ground. Sending money from Airtel to other networks in Uganda, East Africa, and to the rest of the world has never been more affordable. Dial *185# and start sending money. Switch to Airtel Money today and experience unbeatable rates and top-notch services for all your local and international money transfer needs. Airtel Money. Instant, secure, borderless.
Uganda's oil and gas projects are providing opportunities for Ugandan businesses. Between 2017 and 2022, 40% of the 3,800 procurements worth $4.4 billion were awarded to 460 Ugandan companies. This includes 41 community-based companies that have been awarded contracts worth $2.3 million. In order to be contracted to supply goods and services for oil activities in Uganda, entities must register on the National Suppliers Database. Over 2,300 entities are registered on the National Suppliers Database. Registration is free. The Petroleum Authority of Uganda, creating lasting value in Uganda's oil journey.
These days, our homes are no longer just the places we live. It's where we attend meetings, go to class, keep each other safe, and entertain ourselves. To do this smoothly, you need a reliable internet connection. Buy the MTN WakaNet router, which connects up to 32 devices, and get a free 40 GB data bundle at only 149,000 shillings. Or buy the MTN WakaNet MiFi at only 75,000 shillings and enjoy a free 15 GB bundle to stream, study, work, and play on the go. Visit any MTN service center to buy the MTN WakaNet router or MiFi and enjoy the internet that does amazing things.
So just so people can have a sense of what we do at PASAID, because to get the context of something is to help someone understand what you do and how you do it. So we're making 4 interventions. The first intervention is on the market level. And we say that the market is a very strategic area where you get in with a plan. You don't just get your coffee from the field, maybe just if you are even able to roast and ground. And what I'm saying is for bananas, is for cotton, is for many other products. And just show up at the market. The market has barriers of entry. And those barriers have been created by generations and generations of work by other people. So Germany alone, I'm told they have more than 16 high-level roasters of a very high-level magnitude that have set their structures that for you to enter, you need to be smart how you do it. So the market for this advisory committee, we study it, we do dipstick research so that we stop blind trade. We insist that you must have a trade representative. A trade representative is a man or woman who lives in that country, who wakes up in the morning and checks supermarket shelves and tells you, Colombia coffee is doing very well here. How about Uganda coffee? He also knows the local media. He works with the local media to drive the understanding of market tastes and preferences. This is the first intervention we make. Quickly, when you have a market, it demands a particular standard, and you have to comply with that standard. So many of you may not know that we have struggled over a long time as a country to have standardized laws and regulations for food safety. Your food should inspire confidence and trust that when I eat it, I can trace it to the source. To do that, you need culture change. You need for people to grow food with the intention of selling it to another person, but ensuring that that food is safe at home. So we are working on laws, rules, regulations, setting up an authority with the Ministry of Agriculture to house a standards body so that we can say chemicals, animal feeds, the beef you eat, the fish you eat, the chemicals that you use, pesticides, all those things can be traced and standards are enforced and you comply. That's the second intervention we make on the market, because the market is asking you for institutional change. If institutions don't respond to the market, you've wasted time. You've done a seminar and you've gone back to sleep. And you can imagine how they're making is called infrastructure that supports exports. You know, I need roads in Sironko. I know how hard it is to come from a sub-county in Sironko called Wusedan, with all sorts of lack of bridges, lack of roads, to get a truck of Arabica into Mbale. So I have to balance the necessity of having, let's say, oil roads in Hoima with the necessity for having roads that function in Mbale to get to the market faster. But even if I have roads in Mbale, it's important that you understand that your shipping charge, your logistic charge, is one of the highest in the world. It costs us $1,800 to take a container to Mombasa.
Welcome back from that quick commercial break. The coffee is worth the break here, and I hope you're also enjoying the show. My name is Timothy Nyangweso. This is Behind the Headlines. I'm joined by Honorable Amos Kankunda, Dr. Honorable Ati Magnus. I'm also joined by Honorable Mara Paul. I'm also joined by Mr. Mujenyi Robert, who is the Managing Director of Buganda Culture and Development Foundation there. And finally, I'm also joined by Dr. Emmanuel Yamreme, who is the CEO of UCDA, which is providing our coffee. But let me get to some feedback here. Good evening, Nyangweso. I am Wilson. I am so certain that the summit will help foster discussions on strategy to enhance coffee production through value addition. The event presented a significant opportunity for Uganda to further its position on global coffee. We'll get into the quarters later. Hello, Timothy. In 1986, we had a population of 15 million. We produced 3 million bags of coffee. 2023, we have 45 million producing 7 million bags. We need to ask ourselves, why is our coffee production per capita on the decline? Ronald Mivule, thank you very much. One more that we can read here. Asaba comes in from Uganda, says, I'm a coffee farmer, a rural coffee farmer deep in the village and is not sensitized. How do I improve my coffee yield from a small coffee garden, handling, picking red beans, middlemen mixing up our clean coffee with other substances still remains a challenge in cleaning our coffee. Finally, this is Tumsime, says, very interesting perspective. What is being done about the domestic market to increase domestic consumption? It was one of the resolutions. And why is Uganda's coffee preparedness not taking advantage of the African free trade market there? This is greetings to our Rotarian Honorable Dr. Ati Magnus. Doctor, you seem to have people here. Dr. Emmanuel, let's get to solutions now. One of the biggest challenges is climate change. What are you doing about it? Because we no longer even know which seasons we have. When you expect the rains, they're not there. Irrigation is not as cheap as possible. But also demystify how heavily expensive coffee is. Because a gentleman here said, I'm a small farmer. This is what I can manage. Demystify the expense in coffee, but also tell us what you're doing about climate change.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Timothy. Good evening, viewers, again. Climate change is not restricted to coffee. Climate change is a challenge that is affecting the global industry. And as producing countries, of course, we are much affected by climate change. Coffee itself is not spared. The last financial year, we actually had depressed exports because of the long dry spell in eastern Uganda, the Greater Massacre, and the Greater Ankole, coming at a time when the coffee was at flowering stage. But as scientists, we have also been looking at the impact of climate change, and 3 interventions are taking place right now. One, the Coffee Research Institute, Nakori, UCDA transfers 10% of the exports money that comes to UCDA from the cess, from exports. And that has gone to developing varieties which are disease resistant but also tolerant to climate change. We have 10 varieties now of Robusta coffee, and more varieties are anticipated to be released in the next 2 years of Arabica coffee. And these are all bred towards tolerance to climate change. But also with coffee being prone to climate change, we have been promoting the use of shade trees. This has been demonstrated everywhere in northern Uganda. When we give out seedlings, we also provide the shade trees. These shade trees are the traditional trees which have researchers have found that provide adequate shade, but also are not host to pests and diseases that affect the coffee. We believe this is one way of mitigating climate change in coffee, rather than looking at mainly the irrigation, which is not affordable by many farmers. But also farmers, we've been training them and supporting them on how to do good agricultural practices like mulching, keeping the soil moist by planting cover crops, by providing mulch. The big investments in irrigation is the responsibility of Ministry of Water and Environment and Ministry of Agriculture, and we have, as part of the agro-industrialization program of which Uganda Coffee Development Authority is part, we have also been working with them so that in their extension of irrigation, they prioritize farmers who grow coffee. So government is looking at more investment in irrigation, and we believe all these interventions will, in one way or the other, include coffee as one of the ways to mitigate climate change.
And let's talk about, in my little research of coffee, 2 major problems: weed and water. How are you helping, especially smallhold farmers, like the one who asked the question, to come from a smallhold farmer? Because I've been to Mubende, Kasanda, and it's a family, and coffee plants are 50, 60 years there. They can be able to pay for generations. How are you helping such a smallhold farmer, one, benefit, add value to his coffee, and get maximum or optimize the coffee revenues?
One interesting aspect, there is what they call rehabilitation or renovation of all the coffee trees. Many of those trees which took us to school and older than us, we are now demonstrating to the farmer that when you stamp this coffee at 5 feet above the ground, at 45 degrees away from the sun, this coffee within 1 year will actually have sprouted and increase the productivity. We have been providing organic fertilizers at demonstration level for some of these farmers who have stamped their coffee, and we see results coming. Of course, funds not not allowing, we are still operating. Our target would have at least to have 1 million trees stamped in each financial year, but the funds are not coming. This is why we are now encouraging, providing the tools for stamping, training farmers in the stamping or rehabilitation of those old coffee trees, and training them on how they can use manure from their compost or from the making organic manure from either cow dung or from the animal droppings so that they can, in absence of the artificial fertilizers, they can also continue increasing productivity by providing additional nutrients in the soil. So we are looking at giving farmers improved varieties of coffee, the coffee wilt disease, which are also tolerant to drought, but also those who have all the coffee trees, to rehabilitate them or to prune them so that we can increase productivity of the existing trees.
What's
now,
the
talking
reach
of the weeds, for coffee are mainly, they mainly affect coffee before 3 years. After 3 years, if you are doing a good agronomic practices, weed control is actually not a bigger problem, because at that time the coffee has a good canopy and is able to suppress the weeds. This is where, with the new project we have launched with support from government of Uganda and the European Union, we are looking at how we can subsidize the farmer up to 3 years by providing as a subsidy this part of the seedlings, but also opening land, plowing, and also weed control up to around 3 years when the coffee has established and is able to, the farmer is able to break even and start doing production. Of course, that's a small intervention, and we believe government through different sources is going to continue supporting the farmers so that the farmers can access all the inputs that is required for the farmer to increase production. Plus, we are looking at, of course, the focus also in tandem with the coffee roadmap to continue adding value and branding our coffee so that this farmer who is operating under a cooperative or a farm organization can add value and earn more money.
Let me come to Honorable Mara, just a thought, then I come to Mr. Mjenyi there.
Timothy, you have talked about a solution, because we can yap and then moan and it won't really help us. What solutions are there? I think what we are looking at is that big basket of global business in coffee. And as a country, we are saying, how much share do we want to take out of that? And the numbers, we have thrown all the numbers outside there, with Africa only getting $2.8 billion. Uganda currently is the leading exporter of coffee in Africa. The biggest producer is Ethiopia. But as Honorable Dr. Agnes Apea has said, they consume 50% of what they produce. So they have little to export. So Uganda is the leading exporter of coffee in Africa. I think the first thing we must do is, can we double our production?
Yes.
Can we double production?
Invest.
How long is it going to take us to double that production? And I would want to echo what Honorable Amos said, is that we must be intentional. The one who is being intentional here is government. Government needs to lead this onslaught, because we need the revenue. We sit in the finance committee and we know where government revenue is coming from. So one is increased production by government supporting the production of seedlings with UCDA, and making sure that all the support, all the finances that is required for production is provided for. I hear about PDM. PDM is a multifaceted approach. Everybody's doing whatever they want. But coffee, this time is now very specific. We need to focus on it at the farmers level to increase production, more seedlings in terms of our budget framework, and also irrigation. Honorable Amos again talked about the problem we have is the rain is not there, but underneath the ground there is water, less than...
There's even running water.
Exactly.
During rain.
So we need to harvest that water and increase production. The second one is organization. How are farmers organized? What about the ones who are exporting? Are they organized? Let me tell you a very quick story. We went to Mombasa, as a budget committee, were looking at the Kenya Railways and what they were doing. Then we went to see what our tea exporters are doing. You know, there is a commodity trading in Mombasa. So our tea people here, they export tea to Kenya. Then you find that there's one big building, there's a Ugandan building where all our tea people pack their the products, which are basically tea, bundled together in bags. Across it, there's a Kenyan company that gets this one brands it with this one, and immediately the prices have doubled and export it to Europe.
And it's called Kenya tea.
And it's called Kenyan tea. Our tea taken, moved from one building to the next building, branded and exported at a much higher price. So it means we are not organized. I'm happy to hear doctors saying that in the recent testing, we got gold, silver, and bronze in terms of our coffee. Why don't we then improve on that? And it brings me to the third point, which is value addition. We are not going to win this game without value addition, and it must be deliberate. And we can do it through PPP, by bringing in the private sector, government, public sector, and we co-invest. Because government normally has money, and as you've said, my brother, is that you cannot start taxing and, weeding them off when actually they are not yet crawling. So government must be intentional in supporting private sector to making sure that we add value to our coffee. Branding is key, because now, why is it that Kenya would get our tea, brand it across? The Europeans are happy to know that it's a Kenyan tea, which is brand. Oh, it's from Kenya, it's okay. It's the best coffee, because they have branded it over a period of time. If we have the best coffee, it is about Uganda. First of all, it's about us. Let's go to Europe, brand this thing, make noise, and let people know that Ugandan coffee is the best in the world. So branding becomes a very key component of what we must do so that the world would know our coffee and our finished coffee to the cup, so that we can get the value that we are talking about. And of course, marketing. I am happy with what Roderick Rabogo has been doing in the recent visit to Europe, because without marketing, without now going there, that is now marketing and selling and opening those doors in those countries where they drink a lot of coffee, so that we can export more to Europe and to Americas, and most importantly, through the African, continental free trade area, we make sure that where coffee is not dominant, like in Morocco, in the North African countries, we export our coffee within the African continent before even we can think of Europe. And the key strategic issue is about having some reasonable share of the $495.5 billion market size. Otherwise, if we don't do anything, we just keep on talking. Every year we come back and there is no action. We are going to do the same thing. And I would want to see the $800 million as turned into $1.6 billion, into 2, into 3, so that we can support our budget without borrowing. And you know what the noises which has already been made by the funders, that they're not going to give us money. This is actually a low-hanging fruit. This coffee thing, for me, is a low-hanging fruit, and we can work a lot to turn it around.
Thank you very much. Mr. Mjenyi, let me come to you. I think mine will be a two-pronged question for you. Let's leave the cultivation. Let's get into processing, roasting, and let's talk about consumption there. What opportunities are there in this value chain that we can take advantage of? But also, secondly, what regulations and framework do we need in place so that what Honorable Mara said, we're at $1.6 million, $2 million, what regulation needs to be in place, and how do we take advantage of the value chain in there?
Yeah, thank you very much, Timothy. I want to take you a bit back. When UK was developing the coffee exchange, Uganda coffee was set as a benchmark, and it's still a benchmark for international prices of Robusta. When Bugisu coffee was taken to US as a commodity, it was traded above the US market. Somewhere in between, we lost the voice. And that's where we're coming to branding.
Yeah. You
have heard, and it has been repeated several times, our colleagues out there earning $45 of coffee, of pack of, I think per cup of coffee. Is it a cup of coffee? A kilogram of coffee? But I want to tell you something very interesting. There are coffees out there that are branded. And when you mention the prices those coffees are selling at, you might think we are not the source, the birthplace of Robusta, or Africa as a general, the birthplace of coffee. Coffee is like black ivory. If you look at how that coffee is processed, simple methods, and it's trading at $1,000 for 500 grams, $1,000, and we are here crying for 48, 45. We haven't branded our coffee.
No.
And yet it is used as a benchmark. Coffee is like copy work, $1,500 for 500 grams. You know, 500 grams, and we are here all out by 45. It's really something that we need to work on. If Ugandan coffee is used as a benchmark, that's already something unique for us. And we need to take advantage. Bugisu coffee was trading above the US market. But now we need to look at those dynamics. What do we need to get beyond where we were and where we are now? Some of the things that we look at, for a farmer to produce, and as a country that produces coffee, we shall call it one of the competitive advantages, and also comparative. We are better. We have the birth of coffee. Coffee is with us here. We can't do anything new. The doctor mentioned they started with coffee. You know, if you go to the village now and tell a farmer to plant coffee, it's not magic. You don't have to train much. They know how to grow coffee. All they need is how do I increase my production. For a farmer to move from 600 grams to 1,500 grams of FAQ, all they need to do is put 250 to 500 grams of fertilizers per year.
Repeat that.
A farmer to move from 600 grams of FAQ to 1.5 kilograms, all they need is to put between 250 and 500 grams of fertilizer per year.
Only.
But you can ask this farmer, and the farmer will tell you, I've tried this fertilizer, it didn't work. I've tried this fertilizer, it didn't work. Where do I get the genuine fertilizer? And then he goes to the market where there's a genuine fertilizer. A sack of 250 of 50 kilograms is 250,000. Then you also do the mathematics. Farmers are businessmen. Can I still produce without putting fertilizer? Or do I put the 250? That's where the access to finance comes in. You know, we're there in Munyonyo, and as Ugandans were saying, well, government has to make an initiative to support farmers with fertilizers. Kenya said, well, we are doing this already. He said, we need finance. Tanzania said, oh, no, there's already credit finance.
There's a culture bank.
And Uganda, as a country,
we talk a lot,
surpasses all the other East African countries in terms of production.
Without all those.
You know, how we need 20 million bags. There's some research that was done. How do we double this production?
Yeah.
We have moved from about 3.5 million bags to 8.8 million bags. And research was done that if only our farmers could stamp the old coffee trees, they will double their production.
You see?
Just stamping.
Simple things.
If you stamp, you double your production. If you add 500 grams, do we need magic African solutions for African problems? You know? Where are we going? We have seen we need to brand our product. Doctor mentioned we were number 3. Our coffees were top coffees in France. And everyone knows our coffees are the best. They are used to blend other coffees. But when you get to the shelves, you look for Ugandan coffees,
you don't see it.
You don't see it. I don't think it could be one of the solutions But us having areas where we are not, we need to create a pool for our coffees, to create a demand. Ethiopians are drinking their coffees and they are pulling their coffees. We used to drink coffee. I'll tell you, when I was young, I don't know where we lost that, but when I was young, our grandmother used to give us coffee. To pound, muchinu, you pound it. Then you go and she used to use, I think they call it oluwawo.
In Lango we had it was called kawa.
You know?
Basically, yes, and it's powder.
Then she would roast it in a pot. You know, it was prized because only our grandfather would take that coffee. Oyo kawa jaja wa musaja. You know? Kawa jaja musaja. And we were happy to do that. And sometimes we would also be generous and give us some of the coffee to drink. But somewhere we lost it. It's not new to us. We just need to reawaken our senses. And shall be drinking our coffee. If you look at the other areas of production, Uganda, given that we are gifted, we have seen climate change coming in. There are two areas to look at. Water is there, water is not there. If it comes, it is too much. Then it doesn't come. There are words that we use in English. Irrigation. When you mention to a farmer irrigation, the head goes to 30 million, 100 million. It looks impossible. I want to reference our farmers to what the president showed us using bottle irrigation.
Yes.
I will give you an example. For banana, you know, I'm from the Uganda area. And if I don't talk about banana, I'll be doing matoke is the only food that we know. There is no any other food. The others are named by their products. If you give your banana 5 liters of water per week, you'll be having banana throughout the year.
Just 5 liters.
Do you know what it takes to have 5 liters? You just get your jerrycan of water, put it there in the middle of the stump of the garden, of the stool, and you have your banana producing throughout the year.
Yes.
You get your 4 bunches, 5 bunches. Our coffee, what it needs, and the doctor mentioned it, last year in Luengo, Greater Masaka, coffee flowered. We thought we are going to have 12 million bags. After flowering, it was dry. Our coffee is a bit unique. Whenever it has been dry for a while, as soon as it drizzles, it flowers. But if there is no follow-up rain, the flowers are bought. Yeah. But what the coffee needs at that point, that critical moment for the flowers,
water.
500 grams bottle, just get it a liter of water to survive that spell until the next rains come. It doesn't require magic. It's not very expensive. We have seen youth that have got employment in collecting bottles. Why can't we get those bottles and just make sure that our coffee goes through that bit of dry spell? Those are the solutions we need. When it is there plentiful, we can harvest a matundubali. You get your tundubali, you dig a hole, you put it there, it collects for you water. You don't have to think of a pump that is going to go 60 meters deep. You need 30 million to get it. You know? We need African solutions for African problems. And we shall change that. We can even triple our production by using those simple solutions.
Okay. Let me bring in Honorable Dr. Atim. 1 kilogram, $2.5, roasted, same kilogram, $40 to $45. How do we get only $20 from that?
Thank you. And I like what the simple or the homegrown solution my colleague was bringing back. I think you're taking us to the end of the value chain. But we cannot get that $20 if we don't do those simple things and we get the right quality and the right standards. So I think for us to get the $20, it starts from really the whole value chain. Is it the right quality? Do we have the right, are we getting enough quantity per tree? So that investment, as he has explained, has to start from really the farm. Now, I really appreciate the efforts that the president is making. in terms of value addition. The $20 more is basically seeing at what level do we invest in the value addition. Maybe we may not even be thinking of the very big investments that we are looking at, but thinking about the issues like the wet mills that UCD is doing,
Yep.
making sure that the farmer is taken through the processes to make sure they produce the right quality, so that by the time you're selling it to now the final processor, you really have the right quality. And I think the coffee is graded as well.
Yeah, yeah.
So the 10, the 20, 12 to $20, it also depends on the grade. So if we can just take our farmers from that lowest grade to the middle grade, we would have hit the $20. But I think what we need to look at is the president has come out very strongly on the value addition. Oh, I wish that the farmers, the policy makers, the financiers really appreciate and take on what the president is talking about and invest in that. Now, the other way we can also maximize that $20 from the 2.5, maybe before the 40, is that I think we need to strengthen the partnership between the private sector. Because all this we are talking about, we are living this very big, the biggest player here is the private sector. We have the farmer who is also a private sector in a way. But for you to get the $20 and invest in the value addition, we really need the private sector. And this private sector needs financing, cheap access to finance. Not these ones, when you apply, you take 3 years to get. And I think government is trying to put some money in UDB, particularly for the bigger investors in the value chain, in the value addition. This money that we have in the PDM, the initial idea, really the purpose is that that farmer would be able to get that money from PDM and invest in the minimum, like the 500 kgs of the fertilizers. And then the regulators will make sure that the fertilizers which are there are actually the genuine one, not the fake one. So really government is trying in terms of the financing, the access to finance, having at the lowest level PDM, having money in the ACF, I think Bank of Uganda, having money in UDB, so that all levels of private sector have access to financing. So for me, I think that is what can make us reach there. But also there's this element of, as a country, who are we? What are we known for?
Our identity.
What is our identity? If coffee is bringing, it is the highest revenue earner, why can't we really accept that we are a coffee growing country and invest around it? And like we were talking over the break, all these things of technology, value addition, climate change, we need a deliberate effort by government to invest money and have a specific funding for coffee, where a coffee farmer knows that I'm going to get there and get my money. Remember, coffee takes about 2 to 3 years, right? Which commercial bank is going to give you money and wait for 3 years? I think even PDM is going to take, is it a year?
2 years.
2 years to pay back. So PDM at least is kind of aligned to this kind of crop. So for me, I think the best way to get either 40% or 20% of productivity or what, we need financing available for this. And we need to identify with coffee and say this is who we are, and we are known as a coffee producing country. If we are the best, we are the leading exporter.
Yes.
Switzerland is known for watches.
For
the best watches, you think Swiss watch.
Why can't we make ourselves best known for coffee?
Exactly.
And we invest in it, and we increase production, we promote it across the region. Then the world knows if our coffee is big, getting gold and all that in the world market. I think I was privileged to attend one. What was that? That was a coping or something, I think in Italy.
The world of coffee.
Yes, the world of coffee. Our coffee tasted the best in the whole world. The There are those who are trained to taste coffee. So I think we need as a country to appreciate who we are, the comparative advantage we have, and the competitive advantage. We can compete in the field of coffee. So the 20–40% is not a very big deal. We can really achieve that within 2 years if we become deliberate, as my colleague said. But if we keep on talking and not acting, then we will be having all the data. The last time I was even told that, is it Robusta coffee?
Yeah.
Which is born here in Uganda.
Yes.
The marketing guys have not come out to tell the world that, wait a minute, the Robusta coffee you're drinking actually generates from Uganda.
Yes.
So I think it's really a bit of a few things that we need to do to take us out there to position ourselves in the global market.
Thank you very much.
Just to add on to what Honorable has mentioned, the viewers out there, especially those that have the access to money, they will say government has put in money. I happened to chance an opportunity to be in the National Coffee Research Institute about 2 weeks ago. I think it was about 2 weeks ago when we were there with Dr. Yamlimi. And the farmers that were there that wanted access to money, they were told by one of the bankers that government has put in money through agricultural credit. One of the speakers mentioned government has put in money through parish development model. One of the guests said, well, government has put in money through UDB. And also one of the partners said, ABI is also putting in money. You know, money is out there. But the word that Honorable has mentioned is intentional. Intentional efforts for those in coffee. One of the generals, I don't want to say his name, I might be caught and told to testify and all that. But he said he has tried to apply for money for agricultural credit. And one of the lady was kind enough and told him, you know what, who is your banker? He mentioned one of those big banks. And she told him, you know, General, that bank can't come to you. You go to the small banks. Maybe they can give you that money. The money might be there, but the access might be really technical. Some banks, and one of the farmers was really, he stood up and said, no, I've gone and I was given a commercial loan. And I gave up the whole process. It took me about 2 years to go through the process, and then they're telling me to get a commercial loan. You know? And yet,
so accessibility is
an issue.
becomes
Challenging. The money would be there, but everyone wants to put their agenda forward. So the word we need is intentional.
Intentional and having a pool.
You know?
Or
Thank you.
And
I'm
coffee
glad
fund, for example.
we're discussing
I think
that
you had a
because
proposal like that.
even Tanzania itself has that fund, the Agricultural Bank, and has been having it for the last 3 years and continues to do that. Honorable has talked about identity, and it got me thinking, looking at Honorable Mara's wrist there, he has one that has the flag of Uganda. But also going as far as the Kenyans, they are very proud of their country. They'll have a T-shirt, they'll have a wristband of their country there. And I question the identity, but let me come to you. How do we brand ourselves and how do we market ourselves, especially in this area of coffee? You are into shipping, you're the chairman of the finance committee. How do we put ourselves out there?
Thank you so much, Timothy, and the viewers. One, I like the way we are picking the word intentional. And I want to add something there. We must be deliberately intentional. Yes, we must be deliberately intentional. So, and to be deliberately intentional, there are many things. They might be seen to be small, but they have an impact. You've talked about the wrist that my brother Honorable Mara is putting on. It is about branding. And I want to build it from there. You see, viewers, sometimes we've heard the fact, and someone talked to me and told me, you see the problem with you Ugandans, talking too much but doing nothing only. We talk too much but doing nothing only. So we must deliberately take a direction and start walking the talk.
Yes.
Walking the talk is government must support the private sector, because the private sector is the one that leads the economy.
Yes.
So, and I want to appreciate our president, When I saw what he decided about the pay side, the Presidential Advisory Committee
on budget,
investment,
on export,
on export and industrial development. So you can see they are shifting now to branding, so that
And
when you talk,
marketing.
everyone, when you talk about Uganda, what comes to your mind is coffee. Coffee, maybe oil, maybe gold. So enterprise selection that is deliberately supported by government and branded. And this brand, you must have what we call brand visibility. It must be deliberately talked about on all the media. That's brand visibility. Our communication strategy must build to that. So it is a holistic kind of approach, so that now as we go to market ourselves, we must create a buy-in or even piggyback or ride on personalities, have celebrity endorsement. And I can see when Audrey Karabogo met us, he was speaking to that, you know, which is the direction we are taking. But just talking about it without investing and putting the money there is not enough. It is not sufficient. So as we talk about it, we must as government invest in that, so that that brand visibility is done. Now, before I leave that area, my colleagues have talked about starting from the ground. We don't just come to talk about branding unless we've started from the value. And UCDA, I want to thank them for they lead this by giving us quality seedlings and therefore training and creating a mindset change. For example, you've heard that we have challenges with our people cutting the old trees because they are worried. So it must be us to go and explain to them. When you're talking about shades, tree shades that can cover the bigger people, the bigger boys in the market, maybe you can start looking at other value crops like macadamia that create, and I'm told that you can intercrop them with coffee. But if they are the small players, you can start planting coffee with the plantain, what we call gonja, and the sweet bananas, so that now as you cut the other ones, you have an alternative source of revenue that will sustain you as the other ones sprout and grow and start being productive. And these things are not rocket science. These things are a deliberate effort by government and us as leaders that we must take to our people and have them done. Now, we've talked about the small steps. You know, the bird, they say the bird is not, the bird is not the hen is not the bird that lays most eggs, okay? But when it lays an egg, the village knows. Even when it wants to lay, it makes noise, the village will know, the homestead will know, and it is. So we must make that noise so that the markets understand, and the effort we are taking as Africa is a good one, because we shall expand our market, and that's why we're talking about regional and intra-regional trade, the infrastructure. You see, sometimes we don't understand that we are slaves even right now. We're still colonized, we are slaves. We think they are helping us when they bring money to us. But in actual sense, I'll give you an example. In logistics, we made research and realized that, for example, by outsourcing, when you're buying a vehicle, Honorable Mara, from Japan, you don't want to be bothered. You say, no, bring it, cost insurance and fly it up to Mombasa. There is that element of insurance alone, which you're sending, and you don't know whether that Japanese has insured your vehicle. For him, he puts it on the ship and says, okay, it will arrive. It arrives. But the summation of that element of insurance alone, when we did research, we realized that we are actually exporting money. We call it not repatriation.
Capital flight?
Capital flight that is involved in that. You find that to Japan, the imports we are making, we export over millions of dollars, over $100 million.
To Japan in insurance.
To Japan. But when Japan as our colleagues, partners in development, when they bring a check of $5 million US, the way we clap, but we don't know that we are ultimately the ones who give them more money. So at the end of the day, we need to be reviewing these things so that they understand actually that we can make more money when we deliberately take those directions.
Just a quick one,
Yes.
Timothy.
That we clap.
The issue of being, what again, intentional?
Deliberately
intentional.
Yes.
When I was doing my master's at Cardiff University, at that time the key issue going on was globalization. And we looked at Coca-Cola at the time. India had closed its economy from soft drinks from the world. The Coca-Cola, the Pepsi, there was nothing there. But somehow they opened a small window like this. Now, Indians were not drinking Coca-Cola. But Coca-Cola went in. It was very, very intentional. They branded and marketed that product, and they were making losses for 10 years. They said these several hundred millions of Indians, if we get them to drink a bottle of Coke,
We are done.
we are done.
We are home and dry.
So they spent 10 years just branding and pushing the product. The moment those people started drinking Coca-Cola, the billions that they are making now from the Indian continent is unbelievable. In our case, we can be very intentional. We budget. We put money there as a country. We brand. We market. We are in Europe. We're everywhere. It might seem now that we are not making money. But if you have brilliant people who would go there and brand and market, we can spend about 2, 3, 4 years not getting anything. But the moment the Ugandan brand, the coffee, is branded in Europe properly, they will now start, no, it's that one Ugandan coffee, bring.
Yes.
And we'll sit here and watch and make money.
Okay, I'm going to start with Honorable Kankunda.
Yes.
Honorable, just a second.
Deliberately
Because-
intentional.
Deliberately intentional.
Deliberately intentional. We're going to have our parting shots. I'll start with Honorable Kankunda, Dr. Tim, Honorable Mara, and then we'll proceed.
Yeah, thank you, Timothy, and fellow panelists. You see, I liked the way Mugenyi put it, that we don't have to think big, because when you think big, sometimes you don't even start. We must organically grow to the fact that you can do those baby steps of irrigation that His Excellency the President have always promoted. I have a friend, for example, who deliberately makes sure he irrigates using the drip irrigation for tomatoes during the dry season when everyone is not doing anything.
Yes.
And he fetches the highest price in the market.
Yes.
So I want to encourage fellow Ugandans and leaders in particular to promote this, and we shall challenge our government to support this endeavor. And once it is done, I can assure you, Uganda will never be the same.
Okay.
Our tax to, our revenue
That's the GDP?
Yes.
I mean,
revenue
to GDP.
to GDP will improve.
Okay.
URA will be collecting taxes and supporting our budget without even borrowing.
Yes.
There are many things we can do, and that will help us grow our economy.
Thank you very much, Honorable. Honorable Dr.
Thank you
Tim.
very much. I would like to end by saying that let's appreciate who we are. 80% of our population is in agriculture. Let's invest in the farmers. Let's continue subsidizing the coffee farmers, because at the moment they are the most, it is a strategic crop, and it is generating for us more money. So I think let's seize that opportunity as a low-hanging fruit. Let's get in there intentionally, as my colleague deliberately, intentionally invests on our coffee farmers, on coffee, and be able to transform our economy.
Thank you very much. Honorable Mara.
Thank you, Timothy. Just 3 things. One, the Ministry of Agriculture and Trade, especially where Dr. sits, they need to come up with a plan, a concrete plan that will step change the coffee revenue earnings in the next 1 year to 2 years. Secondly, UCDA, please have a plan for Northern Uganda. I'm willing to have about 20 to 50 acres. I can have it as a model farm. I'll be coming to you to give me the seedlings so that we can start. I think
There's no money for seedlings.
no. We will do it. The third one is, I think as Parliament, we represent Parliament of Uganda. If the executive comes up with a proposal to really step change coffee into a new direction, Parliament of Uganda will be willing to support and provide the necessary money so that we can earn more revenue and take our country forward.
Thank you very much. Mr. Mjeng?
Yes, Timothy. What I would want to recommend to our viewers and also the farmers out there, one is that Uganda, we are gifted. We can grow our coffee at a low cost and we can be able to earn. But one of the things that we need to look out for all those farmers that think, well, we can't afford fertilizers, keep an animal. Rear a cow, rear some pigs, rear goats.
I like that.
You'll use the animal waste to improve your soil fertility, and also the animals will help you consume some of the weeds that you have, all the grass that you are growing.
Yes.
Let us stamp our coffee. By stamping, we shall double our production.
Yes.
We shall be, right now we are at 8 million bags. We shall be 16 million bags if we stamp our coffee. The other thing, let us drink our coffee.
That's a good one.
If you harvest 2 bags, just get 1 kilogram. Drink a cup of coffee a day. It is very good. It is healthy for you. Everyone will know that you have drunk your coffee. We had those days when people were driving around with a mwanyi zabala. Right now we are forgetting a mwanyi zibala. I want to tell our people out there, a mwanyi telimba. You grow your coffee or silike. The others are
I like that. Grow your coffee or
The new people are now.
Lastly, Dr. Emmanuel.
Understand those ones.
Again, I want to thank Timothy and all the members of Parliament and for the work you are doing in supporting coffee. At the end of the day, we want to turn back the old days where as Mr. Musenze likes to say, the farmer should be the king, especially the coffee farmer. But I want to bring you back to the issue of the G25 Coffee Summit. Uganda has been a part of that journey, if we are not the leading, in sowing that seed. If coffee originated from Africa, why are we not leading in the revenue earnings? And therefore, we are still in the kitchen to see how this financing we are talking about, which has eroded us in investments. An investor who wants to invest in Africa must be sure there are raw materials. If our production is still low, the investor will go to Brazil, will go to Vietnam, will go to Colombia. Even if we have very good coffee, very good quality, the volumes are not as attractive. I see ourselves exporting our coffee even to other coffee producing countries like India, like Vietnam,
Brazil.
Because our coffee is very good, it's being used for blending. And therefore, as we think about value addition, we have to think about how we also grow the volume so that we can have that quantity of coffee that investor is going to take advantage of, but also the low cost of production here, the low labor costs, and therefore will attract these investments.
Okay.
But Mr. Omar, I know, Honorable Omar, I know you are a banker. Why is our financing very expensive? The big proportion of it is on the risk. So we need to have government investments on the risking that money so that it's very affordable, because financing in value addition is very high capital intensive. You cannot access that money from UDB and invest in roasting. It's very heavy capital, and that's why we deliberately under G25 Coffee Summit we proposed to our excellencies that the African Development Bank, the African Export-Import Bank, can provide that cheap financing at 2%, as opposed to the 12% which is under UDB.
Okay.
And I think,
as you conclude,
and I think we need to deliberately, through you members of parliament, I know Honorable Tim has been spearheading the agricultural bank. In Kenya, they have even a commodity fund, of which coffee takes a big lion's share. And I am looking forward to your motion, where we are going to bring back the cooperative bank, the any financing that can go to a commodity like coffee.
I'm working on UCB.
UCB.
Okay,
Thank you. But
yes, lastly,
we believe after bringing about 17 ministers, 2 heads of states, a vice president, and the prime minister, the next level is to see that the coffee is at the table at the African Union so that we can bargain. I want to bring to your attention, viewers, that European Union has put up a regulation on deforestation. Even our own coffee, they want traceability up to the farmer. How do we think about all this value addition? This production, we have to think about where we are going to sell our markets. Because we can produce this coffee, if we don't invest in value addition, domestic coffee consumption, we might even not have a market for our green coffee because of these strict regulations that the European Union have put across.
And all that.
Okay. Let me read some of the feedback that has come through. To increase productivity, we need to market, have high quality coffee in our motherland, Uganda. Invest in research, support farmers, implement sustainability practices there. This is Aripa Ronald there. Someone else comes in from Zombo and talks about, I'm grateful for this show today, and a lot has been discussed. I'm a barista from Zombo. We need to discuss roasting, grinding, brewing, among others, but also to improve the consumption of coffee in our country. Finally, thank you for the panel today and the good deliberations. Coffee value chain, addressing issues that are to increase productivity, encourage nursery beds for operators there and continue producing good seedlings. This is Major Magezi of OWC in Kamwenge district there. But also, as we become deliberate here, I want to thank the honorables here for coming through and deliberate and intentional, coming through and honoring our invite to discuss this. Thank you very much. And also the production team that has been able to make sure we have this show today. But we'll end it with this quote: how you do anything is how you will do everything. God bless you. Good morning.
Introducing the Infinix Note 30 series in partnership with Airtel Uganda, a smartphone where style meets functionality. Take charge of the day with special features like the 108MP triple camera and 68 watts first charge, and the best part is you can use this phone to charge other phones. You also will enjoy free 3GB from Airtel every month for 3 months on each new device purchased. Dial *100#, select data and devices to get your free data. The Infinix Note 30 series Spark, a connection in partnership with Airtel, a reason to imagine.
UBC, inspiring Uganda.
Introducing the Infinix Note 30 series in partnership with Airtel Uganda, a smartphone where style meets functionality. Take charge of the day with special features like the 108MP triple camera and 68 watts first charge, and the best part is you can use this phone to charge other phones. You also will enjoy free 3GB from Airtel every month for 3 months on each new device purchased. Dial *100#, select data and devices to get your free data. The Infinix Note 30 series Spark, a connection in partnership with Airtel, a reason to imagine.
Chief of Staff has also suggested that Ukraine may get NATO membership in exchange for maybe giving some territories to Russia. Do you think this is actually something that these Western states are prepared to do, or do you think they're just sort of dangling this carrot on Ukraine?
Because, this is what they do all the time. They think, if you do this, then we give you this. But all the people, all the countries in NATO are already saying that Ukraine cannot be part of NATO, because usually it takes a lot of time to be part of NATO, like being part of the European Union. So I think it's a distraction again from Western states to the real issue that Ukraine is losing. The counteroffensive, it's not going well. We also now hear that, NATO is preparing to put troops at the Belarusian border, the Polish border. Poland just had its military parade a few days ago. So it's all, heating up. This is what they maybe want, heating up the conflict, we can say. But I don't think, because I also heard that they want to put 300